Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, a family still in shock after a relative was killed by police. A move to quash the verdict in the Donovan Gardner case. A parliamentarian suing a PLP candidate. NEMA ships nearly $500,000 worth of building supplies to the Family Islands, plus some sweet music over the weekend at Jazz in the Gardens. We've got those stories and so much more. I'm Paige Ferguson, and NB12 starts right now. Welcome once again to NB12. The officer involved in a fatal shooting on Crooked Island has been brought to New Providence while investigators probe that incident. Well, devastated family members of the young man who was shot say they have faith in the Royal Bahamas Police Force and are counting on officials to ensure that justice is served. Here's Vonique Toot.
Relatives of a 25-year-old man killed in a police-involved shooting in Crooked Island on Saturday night are demanding answers. As Azra Ferguson's grieving parents made arrangements to travel to New Providence, his siblings positively identified his body at Princess Margaret Hospital's morgue this morning. Police say an officer shot and killed Ferguson on Seaview Beach at 9:25 p.m. Saturday. The young contractor was taken to the local clinic where he died. His sister, Tiora Ferguson, and cousin, Natasha Ferguson, told NB12 he got into an argument during a cookout, but the matter was quickly resolved. They say by the time the officer arrived on the scene, Ezra's parents had already taken him to their truck.
Both of my parents were there and saw their son on the ground.
When he fell to the ground, he fell beside his father's truck.
Yeah, he was getting in the truck.
His father's truck. Both of them are right there.
When he was approached.
You know, that itself is very hard to live with. They will be thinking about that and perhaps, I should say, dream. That will be in their memories for a long time.
My father haven't eaten since the incident.
No.
Not talking. I haven't spoken to my father because he doesn't want to talk to anybody. I haven't spoken to my father from Saturday. He does not want to talk to anybody. My mother is barely talking. He's barely communicating with my mother.
A team of officers from the Central Detective Unit traveled to Crooked Island to investigate the shooting. Additionally, Assistant Commissioner of Police Glenn Miller says the officer, who is from Crooked Island, is now in New Providence. Miller said the officer is not under arrest. However, he was transported to the capital as part of the police force's policy. The Assistant Commissioner was unable to say whether Ferguson was armed. However, his sister insists he did not have a weapon.
He was not armed in any way, so there was no reason for the gun to come out in the first place, and he was not a stranger to the police officer. It's on a family island where everybody knows everyone.
I still have faith in the government that justice will be prevailed. I am almost certain that they will give us justice because there's no black, there's no gray, there's no white. It's just black and white. And there were many witnesses. You know, Azra did not have a gun. Azra didn't even have a cell phone in his hand. I'm pretty sure when the government trained police, they not just train them to just use their gun to defend themselves.
Ferguson, who had no children, grew up in Crooked Island but eventually moved to New Providence. His sister says he returned to Crooked Island last year after a leg injury forced him to leave his job. She described him as a cuddly teddy bear and hard worker.
He was a very outgoing person, very friendly. He loved his family. Where I lived, the neighborhood, every neighbor on that strip knew him. He made it his point in business to meet everybody.
He's a big teddy bear.
Big teddy bear. He just loved people. He just was a fun, happy person. Loved to dance, loved music.
ACP Miller says the police commissioner would make a public statement when their investigation is completed. Members of the Ferguson family say they won't rest until justice is served. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonique Toot.
While emotions and tempers ran high inside and outside the courtroom where the trial of former police officer Donovan Gardner continued today. Gardner was convicted of manslaughter earlier this month, but today his lawyer, Wayne Monroe, argued why his client's constitutional rights were violated during the trial. Our Jasmine Bonamy was there. She found this report.
2 weeks after trading in his police badge for a prison uniform, former police officer Donovan Gardner returned to court this morning. Gardner was convicted in the beating death of Desmond Key. The guilty verdict of 6-3 was handed down on March 2nd. Prosecutors allege that Gardner beat Key with a baseball bat while he was in the cell of the Grove Police Station on June 17, 2007. They further allege that Key died from those injuries on January 19, 2008 after being hospitalized. Immediately after the verdict was handed down, Monroe filed a constitutional motion, essentially halting the sentencing process. Monroe is requesting that Gardner's conviction be thrown out and there be a retrial. Today, arguments began for the motion. Monroe said he and his legal team were not given the adequate time and facilities to create a thorough defense for Gardner. The attorney argued that key information needed for the defense, like medical documents outlining Key's abdominal injuries, as well as Key's history that included outstanding warrants of arrest, were never provided by the Attorney General's office. Monroe added that another crucial piece of evidence not provided was statements made by 3 other people in custody the night Key was beaten. Only 2 of the 5 men testified during trial. Monroe insisted that by not providing the information, the prosecution team showed flippant disregard for a citizen facing a serious charge. But prosecutor Linda Evans argued that the defense never made formal requests for much of the information. She added that all medical records acquired by the AG's office were handed over to the defense, as well as a list of Key's inactive arrest warrants. But when it came to possible statements given by the 3 other men in the police station, Evans said Monroe's arguments resembled a fishing expedition. Justice Vera Watkins told Monroe that she found herself in a precarious situation with the constitutional motion being filed so late in the process. And outside court today, Key's angry family started a shouting match expressing their frustration. And it isn't quite over for Gardner and his legal team, as they will have to return to court in early May for the decision. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
Well, a teacher being investigated by the Ministry of Education in connection with an alleged sexual misconduct case at the school in Abaco has left the country. That according to Police Press Liaison Officer Inspector Kristen Skippings. Police and the Ministry of Education Sexual Complaints Unit are teaming up in that investigation. The ministry says when the matter was brought to the attention of the authorities, the teacher was placed on administrative leave. The ministry assures the public that it takes matters of this nature very seriously and takes appropriate steps to ensure that students are not exposed to further harm. As far as where that teacher went, that information was not available up to airtime, and police say they cannot provide further details at this time and that more information should be available tomorrow, so be sure to tune in. Well, Minister of National Security Tommy Turnquest has sued Progressive Liberal Party Tall Pines candidate Leslie Miller, accusing him of slander for allegedly suggesting he's a wife-beater. A court document filed in support of Turnquest's lawsuit points to remarks Miller made at a Progressive Liberal Party rally in Golden Gates on March 5th. The court document says Miller described Turnquest as a little poodle and further stated that real men don't beat their wife and force them to stay in hospital overnight. Real men don't beat up women, but beat up real men. Real Bahamian men love up and adore Bahamian women. Only cowards and little poodles take advantage of innocent women. The court document says it was clear that Miller was accusing Turnquest of being a wife beater and that he has no respect for Bahamian women and infers that he is a coward. Turnquest contends Miller was referring to him and the words were uttered with malicious intent to damage his reputation. You can read more on this story in today's issue of the Nassau Guardian.